They say justice is blind, but what they never tell you is that justice is also silent, waiting, watching, biding its time in the shadows between right and wrong. In the quiet corners of the world, where the scales tip and the gavel falls, justice is not a force of nature. It is a decision, a burden, a weight that presses on the soul of anyone who dares to seek it. I say justice is a choice. It's the moment you stand at the crossroads, heart pounding, and decide that you will not turn away. It's the moment you realize that the world will not hand you fairness on a silver platter. You must seize it, shape it, and sometimes burn for it. It's a promise you whisper to the ghosts of those you loved, a promise to become the fire that consumes those who wronged you. In the stillness of midnight, when the world is asleep and your grief is wide awake, you make a vow. You promise to become the reckoning. My name is Alara, and this is not a story about forgiveness. This is not a tale of letting go, of moving on, of finding peace in the ruins. This is a story about holding on, clinging to the embers of a broken promise until they ignite into something unstoppable. This is a story about a debt paid in ashes. Every memory, every hope, every dream reduced to cinders by betrayal. The world I knew was built on lies, cemented with betrayal. The world I knew was built on lies, cemented with betrayal. I was left to tear it all down, brick by bloody brick. Each secret uncovered, each truth revealed was another stone pried loose from the foundation of my old life. I was left to tear it all down, brick by bloody brick. The need for answers becomes a hunger, a relentless ache that eclipses every other feeling. You stop sleeping, you stop eating. The world narrows to a single point of pain, a single burning question. The need for answers becomes a hunger, a relentless ache that eclipses every other feeling. You stop sleeping, you stop eating. The person you were is gone, buried under the rubble of a stolen life. The person you were is gone, buried under the rubble of a stolen life. All that remains is the question, why? Why them? Why me? The question becomes your compass in a universe that's lost all its light. All that remains is the question, why? Why them? Why me? That question becomes your compass in a universe that's lost all its light. Vengeance is not noble. It's messy, ugly, a poison you drink, hoping the other person dies. Vengeance is not noble. It's messy, ugly, a poison you drink, hoping the other person dies. It twists you into a stranger, your eyes hard, your soul cracked. It twists you into a stranger, your eyes hard, your soul cracked. This transformation isn't a choice. It's a surrender to rage, your only companion in a world that's taken everything else. This transformation isn't a choice. It's a surrender to rage, your only companion in a world that's taken everything else. Rage becomes your armor, your shield against the cold indifference of fate. This transformation isn't a choice. It's a surrender to rage, your only companion in a world that's taken everything else. And so the quest begins, not with a grand declaration, but with quiet, steely resolve. And so the quest begins, not with a grand declaration, but with quiet, steely resolve. It starts with the first lie you tell to get closer to the truth, the first door you force open, the first threat you utter. It starts with the first lie you tell to get closer to the truth, the first door you force open, the first threat you utter. Each step is a test, a measure of how far you're willing to go. It starts with the first lie you tell to get closer to the truth, the first door you force open, the first threat you utter. You learn to wear masks, to hide the inferno inside behind a calm facade. You learn to wear masks, to hide the inferno inside behind a calm facade. You become a predator, stalking those who once called you friend. They think you're broken. They think you're weak. You become a predator, stalking those who once called you friend. They think you're broken. They think you're weak. They have no idea you're not just surviving. You are reloading. This is not survival. This is war. They have no idea you're not just surviving. You are reloading. This is not survival. This is war. The world expects you to crumble. The world expects you to crumble. But you rise, forged in fire. You rise from the ashes, stronger, sharper, more dangerous than before. You rise, forged in fire. Every scar is a lesson, every wound a weapon. You are not the victim, You are the reckoning. The world expects you to crumble. But you rise, forged in fire, and you're coming for them. For every lie, every betrayal, every stolen moment, you are the storm they never saw coming. You rise, forged in fire. You are the blade, sharpened by loss, tempered by rage. You are the answer to your own question. And you're coming for them. This is not the end. This is only the beginning. The embers of a broken promise are all that remain, until they ignite, and the world is forced to reckon with the fire you have become. Before the fire, there was light. Not just the kind that pours through windows at dawn, but the kind that fills a life, that seeps into every corner and crevice, warming even the coldest shadows. My world was a canvas painted with sunlight, every brushstroke a memory, every color a promise. My life was a tapestry woven with the brightest threads. Each day a new color, each moment a new pattern. I remember the way the morning sun would catch the reds and golds, making them shimmer as if alive. There was a rhythm to our days, a gentle weaving of routine and surprise, of comfort and delight. I had a husband, Liam, whose laughter was music, clear, bright, and infectious. He could turn the most ordinary moment into a celebration, his eyes always crinkling at the corners, his arms always open for an embrace. And our daughter, Maya, was a whirlwind of giggles and impossible questions, her curiosity boundless, her energy endless. She would run through the fields, her hair a banner behind her, her voice ringing out like a bell. Our home was a sanctuary, filled with the smell of baking bread and the joy of being together. The kitchen was our heart, where stories were told, secrets were shared, and love was baked into every loaf. Evenings were spent around the table, hands reaching, voices overlapping, the world outside fading away. We lived in a small town, our weekends spent on sun-dappled walks through the woods. Maya would collect leaves, each one a treasure, while Liam pointed out birds, teaching her their names and songs. The forest was our playground, our refuge, a place where time slowed and worries melted away. These were the moments that mattered, the quiet minutes that build a lifetime. The world outside could be chaotic, unpredictable, but within those walls, we were safe. We found peace in the ordinary, in the gentle rhythm of togetherness, in the silent language of touch and glance. Our friends were family. Marcus, Liam's ambitious business partner, and his wife, Lena, my closest confidant. We shared more than just meals. We shared dreams, fears, and the unspoken understanding that comes from years of laughter and tears. Our lives were intertwined, our stories overlapping, our joys and sorrows shared. They were the godparents to our daughter, witnesses to our happiness. They stood by us at every milestone, every celebration, every heartbreak. Their presence was a constant, a reassurance that we were never alone. Looking back now is like watching a film of someone else's life. The images flicker and blur, the voices echo from a distance, and I find myself reaching out, desperate to touch what's already gone. Memory is a cruel gift, both balm and blade. I see that happy woman, unaware of the serpent in her garden. She moves through her days with a lightness, a trust in the world's goodness, never suspecting the darkness coiled just out of sight. She believes in forever, in the safety of love, in the promise of tomorrow. I want to warn her, but I can't. I want to shout, to reach across the years and tell her to hold her family close, to never take a single moment for granted. But time is a river, and I am stranded on its farthest shore, powerless to change its course. That woman died with her family. The fire took more than lives. It consumed the person I was, leaving only ashes and echoes. In the silence that followed, I became someone else. Someone haunted, someone hollowed out by loss. All that's left is the ghost of her, haunted by memories of a sunlit world. I wander through the ruins of my old life, searching for warmth, for meaning, for a reason to keep going. The past clings to me, a shroud I cannot shed, a world that was a beautiful, elaborate lie. The smiles were masks, the handshakes daggers. I see now the cracks in the facade, the secrets hidden behind every gesture, every word. I see it now, with eyes scorched open. The truth burns away the illusions, leaving only what was always there, waiting to be seen. I cannot unsee it. cannot return to the innocence I once knew. The truth was always hiding in plain sight. It waited, patient and silent, for the day I would be ready to see it. Now, with everything lost, I finally understand. The light that once filled my world was both blessing and curse, illuminating beauty and betrayal. The betrayal came as an explosion, not a whisper, a deafening roar that tore through my reality. It was as if the universe itself had decided to shatter the fragile peace I'd built, to rip away everything I loved in a single, merciless instant. The night air, once cool and calm, was suddenly alive with chaos and heat, the sky above my home painted with fire and fear. It was a Tuesday. I was returning late, a gift for Maya in my bag, thinking of welcome home hugs. I remember the way the bag rustled in my hand, the anticipation of her smile, the warmth I expected to find waiting for me. The world felt ordinary, safe, until it wasn't. As I turned onto our street, I saw flashing lights, red and blue, painting the night in nightmare colors. The sirens wailed, echoing off the houses, drowning out my thoughts. My heart pounded, dread blooming in my chest as I realized the chaos was centered on my own home. Our house was gone, replaced by a skeletal frame vomiting flames and smoke. The place where laughter once echoed was now a graveyard of memories, every wall and window devoured by fire. I stood rooted to the spot, unable to comprehend the destruction before me. Firefighters shouted. I ran, but official arms stopped me. They told me no one could have survived. Their words crashed over me, cold and final, as I screamed Maya and Liam's names into the night. The world spun, and I felt myself slipping, falling into a darkness deeper than the smoke. The words were meaningless. Liam and Maya were inside. This had to be a mistake. I clung to denial, refusing to believe that the people I loved most were gone in a flash of fire and smoke. My mind replayed every moment, every possibility, searching for a way out of this nightmare. The official story: a faulty gas line, a tragic accident. The investigators moved with practiced detachment, their words clinical, their faces unreadable. They offered condolences, but their eyes slid away from mine, as if the truth was too heavy to meet head-on. The town mourned. Marcus and Lena were by my side, their grief a perfect performance. They held me, whispered words of comfort, their presence a balm to my shattered heart. But even then, something in their touch felt rehearsed, their sorrow too polished. I clung to their sympathy, too broken to see the truth. Grief wrapped around me like a shroud, blinding me to the subtle cracks in their facade. I let myself be carried by their kindness, never questioning the motives behind their gentle words. But grief clarifies. In the silence, inconsistencies surfaced. A misplaced document, an overheard call, Marcus's evasions. The world slowed, and I began to notice the things that didn't fit, the details that whispered of secrets and lies. My mind, dulled by loss, began to sharpen with suspicion. Small things, easily dismissed, but they planted a seed of doubt. A receipt for gas line repairs that never happened. A phone number scribbled on a napkin, quickly hidden. I began to wonder if the tragedy that destroyed my family was more than just a cruel twist of fate. The story of a gas leak was too neat. The paperwork was in order, the explanations tidy, but the more I looked, the more I saw the gaps. The truth, I realized, was hiding in plain sight, waiting for me to dig deeper. I started to pull at the ribbon. Each question led to another, each answer only deepening the mystery. The more I unraveled, the more I realized how tightly the truth had been bound. The truth was tangled in shadows. I searched through the wreckage of my life, piecing together fragments of the past, desperate for answers. Every discovery brought me closer to the heart of the fire, to the secret that had destroyed my world. My family's death was no accident. The evidence was there, hidden beneath layers of grief and deception. I felt anger ignite within me, burning away the numbness, leaving only purpose. The world wanted me to accept loss, but I needed answers. I needed justice. I refused to let my family's memory be reduced to a line in a police report, a footnote in the town's history. I would not rest until I uncovered the truth. The hunt began in the ashes. Every day I returned to the ruins, searching for clues, for anything that might explain the unexplainable. The pain of loss became fuel for my quest, driving me forward when all I wanted was to collapse. And I would not stop. Not until every secret was unearthed, every lie exposed. The night the sky fell was only the beginning. My journey for justice had just begun, and I would walk through fire itself to find the truth. Grief is a slow, relentless fire. It does not roar or consume all at once. Instead, it smolders, creeping through the cracks of your life, reshaping you in ways you never imagined. My transformation was slow, like a bone setting wrong, painful, imperfect, but inevitable. In the beginning, I clung to the routines of my old life, desperate for comfort, for a sense of normalcy. But every familiar act became a reminder of what I had lost. The woman who loved baking bread was dead. In her place, something harder, colder, forged in the heat of loss. The kitchen, once filled with laughter and the scent of rising dough, became a mausoleum of memories. I could not bring myself to finish what I started. The simple act of kneading bread felt foreign, pointless. I shed the apron, left the flour to settle, and let the silence grow. Grief became my whetstone, sharpening my senses, fueling a dry-eyed resolve. I learned to channel the ache into focus, to let the pain hone me rather than break me. Each day I felt the edges of my old self being ground away, replaced by something new, something unyielding. I was no longer content to sit in the shadows of my sorrow. I would not be a victim. I would be a reckoning. The world that had taken so much from me would learn that I was not to be pitied or dismissed. I walked the city at night, letting the darkness seep into my bones, letting it teach me how to move unseen, how to listen for danger, how to become a shadow among shadows. I trained, body and mind, learning to fight, to disappear, to read the language of power and corruption. The gym became my sanctuary, the ring my confessional. I learned to strike, to defend, to anticipate. At night, I pored over files, piecing together the puzzle of my husband's death, searching for the pattern in the chaos. Every new skill was a weapon, every fact a shield. Every new skill was a brick in the fortress I built around my heart. I fortified myself against the world, against the pain, against the possibility of hope. I became my own protector, my own confidant. The walls grew higher with each lesson learned, each truth uncovered. My investigation began. I was no longer a grieving widow. I was a hunter. I mapped connections, tracked movements, followed the faintest trails. The city became my hunting ground, its secrets my prey. I learned to blend in, to watch without being seen, to listen without being heard. I followed Marcus, listened to Lena, became a phantom collecting fragments of truth. I learned to move in silence, to gather whispers and rumors, to piece together the story no one wanted told. Every encounter was a risk, every conversation a potential trap. But I pressed on, driven by a need for answers that burned hotter than fear. Each discovery was a flicker of light in the darkness. Every clue, every scrap of evidence was a spark that pushed back the shadows. I clung to these moments, letting them guide me through the labyrinth of lies and danger. Liam had uncovered Marcus's massive fraud, implicating powerful figures. The accident was their solution. The evidence was damning, the connections undeniable. My husband had been silenced for daring to expose the truth. The realization was a knife twisting in my gut, but it also gave me purpose. This new life was solitary. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford. Friends became strangers, and strangers became threats. I learned to rely on myself, to question every motive, to expect betrayal at every turn. The loneliness was suffocating, but it was safer than hope. Paranoia became my shield. I lived on coffee and adrenaline, sleep a distant memory. Every sound in the night set my nerves on edge. I learned to function in a state of constant alert, to trust my instincts above all else. The world outside my door was hostile, but I refused to let it break me. I was becoming someone Liam wouldn't recognize, someone Maya might fear. The woman in the mirror was a stranger, hard-eyed, unyielding, haunted by choices she never wanted to make. I mourned not just my husband, but the life we had built, the person I used to be. But this was the price. To seek justice, I had to let go of the past, to sacrifice the remnants of my old life. Every memento, every memory, became a weight I could no longer carry. The cost of uncovering a truth so monstrous it had to be hidden by fire and death. I watched the evidence burn, knowing that some things could never be recovered, that some bridges could never be rebuilt. But I would not turn back. The truth demanded sacrifice, and I was willing to pay. I was no longer mourning. The time for tears had passed. I steeled myself for what was to come, knowing that the path ahead would be darker, more dangerous than anything I had faced before. But I was ready. I was preparing for war. The fortress was complete, and I was ready. The woman I had been was gone, consumed by the fire of grief and reborn in its ashes. Now I would become the storm that swept away the lies, the reckoning that would not be denied. The hunt had truly begun. The deeper I dug, the more twisted the conspiracy became. Each night, as the city's lights flickered and faded, I found myself alone with the ghosts of my past and the chilling realization that every answer I uncovered only led to more questions. The silence of the room was broken only by the rustle of paper and the distant hum of traffic, a constant reminder that the world outside continued, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. Marcus was a pawn for larger, more dangerous players. City officials, police, judges. The web stretched far beyond what I'd imagined, ensnaring those sworn to protect and serve. I saw their faces in the files, their names in the ledgers, their secrets hidden in plain sight. The corruption was systemic, a rot that had festered for years, infecting every level of power in the city. Liam had found the master ledger, the evidence that could bring them all down. It was more than a book. It was a map of betrayal, a record of every bribe, every threat, every life destroyed for profit. I could almost hear Liam's voice, steady and determined, as he pieced together the puzzle, risking everything for the truth. A disgruntled clerk, grateful for Liam's past kindness, slipped me a file, altered blueprints for our property, showing a remote-triggered incendiary device. The clerk's hands shook as he passed the folder across the desk, his eyes darting to the door, as if expecting someone to burst in at any moment. He whispered, "You didn't deserve this," before vanishing into the night, leaving me with the weight of his secret. It wasn't an accident. It was an execution. The flames that consumed my home were not born of chance, but of calculation and malice. Every charred beam, every melted memory was a testament to the cruelty of those who orchestrated this tragedy. The investigators' voices echoed in my mind, their words clinical and detached. But I knew the truth now. My family had been targeted. My family had been murdered by a committee. The people I trusted, the institutions I believed in, had conspired to erase everything I loved. The empty chairs at our dinner table became monuments to their absence. The silence in our home a constant reminder of what had been stolen from me. Grief and rage warred within me, each feeding the other until I could barely breathe. The most devastating blow came from Lena. I remember the night I got the call, her voice trembling as she delivered the news. She wept with me, held my hand, promised we'd find justice together. In those moments, I clung to her friendship like a lifeline, never suspecting the truth that lurked beneath her tears. Hacking Marcus's server, I found emails from Lena, my friend, my confidant, feeding Marcus information about Liam's every move. The words on the screen blurred as I read them, disbelief giving way to horror. She had been my anchor, my support, and all along she had been the eyes and ears of my enemy. Every secret I'd shared, every plan I'd made, had been delivered straight into Marcus's hands. She told him when Liam found the ledger, where he hid it, and that I'd be out of town. Every detail, every movement, meticulously documented and relayed. The betrayal was surgical, precise, leaving no room for doubt. I realized then that the trap had been set long before the fire, and I had walked into it blind. She ensured I'd be the sole survivor, too shattered to ask questions. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. My survival was not a blessing, but a sentence. I was left alone, broken, the perfect witness who would never see the truth. Lena's careful manipulation had left me isolated, vulnerable, and utterly betrayed. The discovery felt like a second death. Marcus's betrayal was greed. Lena's was personal. I could forgive ambition, even envy, but not this. The pain of her treachery cut deeper than any wound, reopening every scar I thought had healed. I mourned not just my family, but the friendship I thought I'd had, the trust I'd so freely given. She had held my hand and cried with me, knowing she'd signed my family's death warrant. Every memory of our friendship became tainted, every moment of comfort twisted into a lie. I replayed our conversations, searching for signs I'd missed, clues to her duplicity. The guilt gnawed at me. How could I have been so blind? The love I felt for her curdled into something black. Grief gave way to fury, sorrow to resolve. I would not let her betrayal define me. The fire that destroyed my home now burned within me, fueling a new purpose, a hunger for justice, for answers, for retribution. The whispers in the shadows became a scream. The city itself seemed to pulse with secrets, every alleyway and rooftop hiding another piece of the puzzle. I moved through the darkness, no longer afraid, but driven by a singular purpose. The truth would not remain hidden forever. At its center was the face of my dearest friend. Lena, the one I trusted above all others, had become the linchpin of my pain. Her image haunted me, a constant reminder of how easily love can be twisted into betrayal. But I would not let her win. Not now, not ever. The truth was a knife. It cut through every lie, every illusion, leaving only the raw, unvarnished reality. I embraced the pain, let it sharpen my resolve. There would be no more running, no more hiding. The time for justice had come, and I was ready to use it. With every step, I felt the weight of my loss transform into strength. The shadows no longer frightened me. They became my allies, my cover, my weapon. I would bring the truth into the light, no matter the cost. The hunt had begun, and I would not rest until justice was served. The night Lena's betrayal was laid bare, something inside me shattered. The last fragile remnants of the old Alara, hopeful, trusting, perhaps even naive, crumbled to dust beneath the weight of her deception. I sat alone in the suffocating silence, the world outside blurred by rain and regret, and let the truth settle in my bones. There was no going back. The hunt was no longer just a mission. It was personal. Every step I took was fueled by a new, raw energy. My actions grew bolder, my choices more ruthless. I moved through the city like a shadow, unseen but ever present, my heart hardened by betrayal and loss. I was no longer the prey. I was the predator. I became the architect of chaos. I sowed discord with every carefully crafted message, every whispered secret. I leaked tips to the right ears, watched as suspicion bloomed and alliances fractured. The once unbreakable bonds between them began to unravel, thread by thread, as I pulled at the seams of their trust. I watched from the shadows as their world began to crumble, just as mine had. I crossed lines I once swore I never would. I blackmailed, broke in, left a single white lily, Maya's favorite, on Marcus's desk, a silent message only he would understand. It was a warning, a memory, and a promise all at once. The scent of the lily lingered in the air, a ghost of innocence lost. I wanted them to feel what I had felt, fear, uncertainty, the sense of being hunted. I wanted every shadow to hold a threat, every silence to echo with dread. Their paranoia grew with each passing day, their confidence eroding as they realized the tables had turned. They were no longer in control. But every step I took in the darkness carved another piece from my soul. The line between justice and vengeance blurred, and I felt myself slipping further from the person I once was. Each night, alone in the quiet, I wondered if I was becoming the very thing I despised. The cost of my crusade weighed heavy on my heart, but I pressed on, driven by a pain that refused to fade. Was this what Liam would have wanted? I asked myself that question in the darkest hours, searching for his voice in the silence. I remembered his laughter, his kindness, the way he believed in justice above all else. But the answer whispered from the depths of my grief. was always yes. He would have wanted me to fight, to stand up for what was right, even if it meant losing myself along the way. I embraced the darkness, let it become my armor. I was no longer afraid of what I might become. I was an instrument of their downfall, a force they could neither predict nor control. Every move I made was calculated, every risk measured. I was relentless, unstoppable, a storm gathering on the horizon. They saw only a broken woman, someone easy to dismiss, to underestimate. They whispered behind my back, convinced I was finished, that I posed no threat. But that was their last mistake. They never saw the storm I was about to unleash. I was the reckoning they never saw coming. I was the fire in the ashes, the justice forged in pain. And as the first light of dawn broke over the city, I knew my hunt was far from over. The heart of the hunter beat strong within me, and I would not rest until every debt was paid. The night the reckoning arrived, the city was shrouded in darkness, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes you question if dawn will ever come. Rain hammered the streets, relentless and cold, as if the sky itself mourned what was about to unfold. Lightning split the heavens, illuminating the world in brief, violent flashes, each one a warning, a prelude to the storm within. I stood outside the abandoned warehouse, soaked to the skin, heart pounding with a mixture of dread and resolve. This was the place where everything would end, or begin anew. I had chosen it for its isolation, its history of secrets and shadows. Here I would confront the architects of my pain. I had sent the message days before, careful and cryptic, promising Marcus, Lena, and the others the one thing they craved most: the location of Liam's ledger. The bait was irresistible. Greed and fear would draw them in, just as I intended. They arrived in a cluster, their faces masked with bravado, but their eyes betraying the truth. Uncertainty, suspicion, the gnawing fear that they were being watched. They moved as one, stepping into the darkness, unaware that every step brought them closer to their undoing. I watched from the shadows, my breath steady, my resolve unbreakable. For so long I had been a ghost in their lives, a whisper of vengeance. Tonight I would become something more. I stepped into the doorway, letting the light from the storm frame me, a living accusation. No longer a phantom, I was the embodiment of every sin they had tried to bury. Their eyes widened, recognition dawning, and for a moment, time itself seemed to hold its breath. "You know why you're here?" I said, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. "You know what you've done." I laid out their crimes one by one. Altered blueprints, secret bank transfers, Lena's damning emails, each piece of evidence a nail in the coffin of their innocence. The truth was undeniable, laid bare beneath the harsh, flickering lights. Marcus tried to laugh it off, his voice brittle. Lena's hands shook. The others shifted, desperate for an escape that didn't exist. Their denials crumbled, replaced by fear and the dawning realization that there was no way out. The warehouse became a crucible, burning away their lies until only the raw truth remained. I turned to Lena, the architect of betrayal, the friend who had become my enemy. "Why?" I demanded, my voice trembling with the weight of years lost. Lena's composure shattered. Tears streamed down her face as she confessed. Jealousy, envy, a longing for a life she could never have. Her words spilled out, raw and ugly, painting a picture of a soul twisted by resentment. "I never thought it would go this far," she whispered, voice barely audible over the storm. "I never thought they'd actually do it." Her excuse was an insult to my child's memory, a feeble attempt to shift blame. I felt anger surge within me, hot and blinding, but I held it back. This night was not about vengeance through violence. The climax was not a gunshot, not a scream in the dark. It was a choice, a moment where I could become like them, or rise above. I let my hand fall away from the weapon. I would not stain my soul with their blood. Justice would come, but not by my hand. I had prepared everything. A recording device captured every word, every confession. The evidence was sent to every news outlet, every authority that mattered. Their secrets were no longer safe. In that moment, their lives unraveled. The power they wielded, the lies they told, all exposed to the world. Police sirens wailed, growing louder, closer. I watched as law enforcement stormed the warehouse, their presence a final, undeniable judgment. I didn't need to kill them. The truth was enough. I watched as they were led away, their futures stolen by their own hands. No prison could match the torment of their guilt, the knowledge that justice had finally caught up to them. Justice was served, not by violence, but by truth. The scales balanced, the gavel fell, and the world saw them for what they truly were. As the warehouse burned behind me, I walked away, free at last from the chains of vengeance. The fire I started would consume them, but it would also light my path forward. I stepped into the dawn, the storm finally passing, and for the first time in years, I felt hope. The courtroom was silent, echoing with the ghosts of every word spoken, every accusation hurled, every plea for mercy or justice. I stood alone, the weight of the verdict pressing down on my shoulders like a shroud. Victory was a hollow echo, reverberating through the empty chamber, bouncing off the cold marble and returning to me as nothing more than a whisper of what I thought I wanted. The city outside glimmered with the promise of a new day, but inside time seemed to stand still, frozen in the aftermath of judgment. I watched them led away in handcuffs, faces lit by red and blue lights, a grim reflection of the night my world ended. The same colors that once painted my nightmares now illuminated the faces of those who had shattered my life. Their eyes, once so full of arrogance and certainty, now flickered with fear and regret. I should have felt satisfaction, a sense of closure, but instead, I felt only the cold bite of emptiness. The night air was thick with the scent of rain and exhaust, and as the police cars disappeared into the darkness, I realized that no amount of justice could ever bring back what I had lost. The news called it justice, painted me a hero. My name was splashed across headlines, my face broadcast into living rooms and onto phone screens. Strangers sent messages of support, calling me brave, calling me strong. They saw a woman who had fought back, who had refused to be broken. But they didn't see the sleepless nights, the trembling hands, the moments when I doubted everything. The world wanted a story of triumph, a neat ending, a villain vanquished, and a hero crowned. But real life is never so simple. But I felt no triumph. The victory podium was empty. The applause faded before it ever reached my ears. I wandered through the aftermath like a ghost, untouched by the celebrations others tried to thrust upon me. The world moved on, eager for the next headline, the next tragedy, the next hero. But I was left behind, stranded in the silence that follows the storm. The fire of vengeance had been my universe. It had consumed every waking thought, every heartbeat, every breath. I had fed it with my pain, my anger, my longing for retribution. It was the only thing that kept me moving forward when everything else had fallen away. I thought that when the flames finally died, I would find peace. But I was wrong. Now it was gone, leaving only cold, silent dark. The apartment felt cavernous, every shadow a reminder of what I had lost. The silence was deafening, pressing in on me from all sides. I wandered from room to room, searching for something, anything, to fill the void. But there was nothing left. The fire that had driven me was extinguished, and in its absence I was left with only the echo of my own footsteps. I had sought justice for Liam and Maya, but prison sentences felt like a pale imitation of retribution. The law had spoken, but its words were cold and clinical, stripped of the raw emotion that had fueled my quest. The men who had destroyed my family would spend years behind bars, but no sentence could ever balance the scales. No punishment could ever restore what was taken from me. Justice, I realized, was not the same as healing. I had sacrificed my soul for this moment, and the release was fleeting. The photograph in my hands was all that remained of the life I once knew. I clung to it, desperate to hold on to the love that had been stolen from me. But even that comfort was fading, slipping through my fingers like sand. The cost of my vengeance was written in every line on my face, every sleepless night, every tear I shed in the darkness. The final verdict wasn't in a courtroom, but in the quiet of my empty apartment. It was in the way the silence pressed in on me, in the way the shadows seemed to stretch and grow with every passing hour. I realized that justice, true justice, was not something that could be handed down by a judge or a jury. It was something I would have to find within myself if I ever could. I had unmasked the monsters, but in doing so, I had become one. The reflection in the mirror was a stranger, haunted, hollow, changed by the darkness I had embraced. I wondered if I could ever find my way back, or if the fire I had unleashed would consume me forever. The line between justice and vengeance had blurred, and I was left standing in the gray, unable to tell where one ended and the other began. The question that remained, was the price of their ruin worth the cost of my own? I stared out at the city, alive with possibility, and wondered if I could ever find forgiveness, for them or for myself. The world would remember me as a hero, but I would always know the truth. In the end, the final verdict was mine alone to bear. In the aftermath, silence became my companion. The world outside moved on, but inside time seemed to slow, each second stretching into eternity. The echoes of what had happened lingered in every corner of my home, in every breath I took. I found myself listening for sounds that would never come, footsteps, laughter, the familiar hum of a life that was now gone. The quiet was not peaceful. It was heavy, pressing down on me, reminding me of all that had been lost. The adrenaline was gone, leaving exhaustion and emptiness. My body ached from the tension that had held me together for so long. Now, with the fight over, I felt hollow, as if the very core of me had been scooped out and left behind. Sleep eluded me, replaced by restless nights and haunted dreams. I wandered through my days in a fog, unable to shake the weight of what I had done, and what had been done to me. Friends reached out, but their comfort felt foreign. Their words, meant to heal, bounced off the walls I had built around myself. I saw their concern, felt their love, but I could not let it in. I was adrift, unable to connect, unable to explain the storm that still raged inside me. Their presence was a reminder of the world I no longer belonged to, a world untouched by the fire that had consumed mine. The end of the fight was not the beginning of peace, but a different kind of emptiness. I had imagined that victory would bring relief, that justice would fill the void left by loss. Instead, I found only silence, a vast and echoing absence where hope should have been. The world was unchanged, indifferent to my struggle. I was left to wander through it, a ghost in my own life, searching for meaning in the ruins. Vengeance brought accountability, but not closure. I had hoped that confronting those who wronged me would heal the wounds they left behind. But justice, when it came, was cold and clinical. A verdict, a sentence, a line drawn under the past. It did not erase the pain, nor did it restore what was lost. I was left with memories that burned as fiercely as any flame, and a future I could not yet imagine. The fire I unleashed consumed them, and me. In seeking justice, I became something I never intended. The anger that fueled me was a double-edged sword, cutting through my enemies but leaving me wounded as well. I watched as the flames devoured the past, but they also scorched the future, leaving only ashes in their wake. I wondered if I could ever rebuild from what remained, or if I was destined to live among the ruins. I was left in the ashes of two lives, the one they took and the one I sacrificed. The person I had been was gone, lost to the flames of vengeance and grief. In her place stood someone new, forged in fire and sorrow, uncertain and alone. I mourned both losses, feeling the weight of choices made and paths abandoned. The ashes clung to me, a reminder of all that had been destroyed, and all that might still be rebuilt. Now I stand at a crossroads, the path forward shrouded in fog. The future is uncertain, the way ahead hidden by doubt and fear. I do not know where this road will lead, or if I have the strength to walk it, but I know I cannot remain in the ashes forever. Each step is a leap of faith, a promise to myself that I will keep moving, even when I cannot see the end. Perhaps true justice is learning to live with the ghosts, not for them. The past will always be a part of me, its shadows lingering at the edges of my days. But I cannot let it define me, cannot let it dictate every choice I make. I must find a way to honor what was lost without being consumed by it. The ghosts will walk beside me, but they will not lead me. I will carry them with me, but I will not let them weigh me down. The fire is out. The embers are cold. The rage that once burned so brightly has faded, leaving only the memory of its heat. I am left with the aftermath, with the quiet that follows the storm. It is a new kind of silence, one that holds the promise of healing, if I am brave enough to seek it. The ashes are not the end, but the beginning of something new. And for the first time, I must find a reason to see the sunrise. The journey ahead will not be easy, and the scars I carry will not fade quickly. But as the light breaks over the horizon, I feel the stirrings of hope, fragile but real. I survived the fire. Now I must learn to live again. The silence after the storm is not emptiness, but possibility. And as I step into the dawn, I choose to believe that healing is possible, that new beginnings can rise from the ashes.